Hello, everybody. You've tuned in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance, Cops for Kids, subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance. Tom Trial, who puts us on YouTube each and every week, is standing behind the scene here. And you may hear a little bit of background noise on this show today because I have with me Captain Mike Pruitt from Wayne Township Fire Department. And Mike has brought in one of his tools that they utilize a lot here in the fire department for Wayne Township and other events. It's a UAV that we've got sitting up here, and I think Tom's probably got a picture of it right now that he's putting on there. That's amazing.
They are amazing tools.
Yeah.
When you say tools, a lot of people initially would call them a toy. But
right.
In our side of the business, it's become a very essential tool.
It is a good tool, and you've been flying around the room here a little bit before we got the show started here, and it's amazing what you can do in such a small, confined space and how that works out.
Yeah, we've been able to utilize these on fires, missing persons, hazardous materials runs, to do fire investigations. So there's numerous things that we're using this tool for now on our side of the business, and we're starting to see that spread now, not only from the fire side, but also into law enforcement. So
you're, maybe if you can spin it around here a little bit and maybe show what it can do, and then we'll bring it down and shut it off so it's not doing the entire show here. But that's all controlled there from the control that Mike's got in his hand.
Controlling it from my iPhone.
Controlling it from your iPhone.
Yep. And so they're actually extremely easy to control. Now, the UAV like this, we're looking at an upper-end UAV.
Okay.
We're talking about $1,500. And I say $1,500, that's really not that much when you look at some of the technology we have to spend money on in public safety, and gives us a whole new set of eyes with this tool. But this is controlled by iPhone. It's very easy to control. Most people that have owned a UAV for any amount of time will tell you they're pretty easy to fly once you practice and get used to using these.
Well, let's bring it down now and shut it off, and we'll talk a little bit about exactly what you guys do use it for and how it's utilized in the fire side and law enforcement, and what you see for it in the future. That's amazing how precise that is and how you can walk it down. Right there. Wow.
Much quieter now, isn't it?
Well, again, Mike Pruitt, Captain of the Wayne Township Fire Department, the UAV operator. Mike, how many operators do you have on that side?
We have about 5 people trained in our agency to operate these UAVs.
And trained, what are you talking about trained? Is there a certain class you go through? Or is there certification, or how does that work out?
So there's 2 ways that people approach the UAV business. So if you're into the commercial side of this, you would go through what's called the Part 107B training, which the FAA requires. Public safety-wise, we don't necessarily have to follow that route of the 107B. We can get what's called a certificate of authority, which is a COA for our agency, a public safety COA. So then we train our own people based on a lot of national standards that are coming out now on how to utilize these and how to train your people. So we get them out, basically get hands-on, allow our personnel to spend some time just handling the aircraft without a camera. Mm-hmm. So it's just all they're doing is watching that aircraft, because sometimes we get zoomed in on that camera and things go wrong. We have them flying around obstacles. We have them doing photography, just a lot of takeoff and landing, so that they get proficient with this, so that they can in turn use this on any of our incidents that we might have.
Let's go back to the very beginning. When did you guys start looking into this seriously, and how did you come about this type and whatever you have available now to utilize?
3 years ago, we started discussion about utilizing this in the fire department, and we were a little uneasy about it. Of course, when you say the word drone, a lot of negative things come along with the word drone. And as we eased into it, we got connected up with a consulting company who was brand new into this, of helping public safety agencies get on board with using the UAVs in their business. And we started talking to them, and the reality that we could actually do this started coming about. And so we brought them in, they trained us, we got our proper paperwork through the FAA to get started. We made our initial purchase of the UAVs, which the initial ones we bought are much larger than this one. They've shrunk these down a little bit over the past couple of years.
Just because of the technology?
Just because of the technology. They've come up with some pretty amazing stuff. And so as it progressed, we changed some of our equipment along the way to make it a little bit more user-friendly for our department to use. And we've been on that road ever since. And so we're always out there kind of spearheading and trying to help perfect the UAV business in public safety.
Your larger ones, are they the same? Do they have the same capabilities of these, or do you?
They do. These machines shoot great video and pictures, better video and pictures than some of our nice cameras out there that we carry around with us. So when we were when we initially went into this, we needed something that was going to be capable of providing FLIR, which is the forward-looking infrared, so that we could seek out hotspots or we could seek out a missing person. And so we found a UAV platform that we could utilize to do that, purchased that, and we've used that quite a bit for hazmat, fires, missing persons. So we have that platform. We actually have another platform on order that's coming in that will do the same thing, but even do it better. And then we have smaller UAVs like the one that you see sitting here on the table, because 80% of what we're doing is aerial photography, giving our incident commanders eyes on whatever the situation is below, whether it's a large fire, getting eyes on a hazardous materials incident where we don't want to send people downrange to investigate what is spilled. We can send the UAV down there, and they can see that live. And
you can read the number on the hazmat material.
The number, you can read the placard number on the hazmat or whatever the material is. And when we first started putting this in the face of our incident commanders and they started looking at this, it was like a sigh of relief that they had this opportunity now to see things in the big picture that they never had before.
Can you only see it on your iPhone? Can you project that to something else in your incident command?
You can do that. Right now, and depending on how much money you want to spend, you can spend a lot of money on downlink capabilities, but actually we see people using this Facebook Live, YouTube, are two of the platforms that you can actually broadcast live. Now, we have a private YouTube channel that we have within our agency that we can also send the signal back to the incident commander if I'm not standing there right next to him, so he can go to the laptop in the command vehicle and he can look at that and he can see what's going on with just a slight delay through using the wireless technology.
Do you find this is good for training within your department on hazmat or whatever the circumstances? You can say, this is what we had and this is...
Yep. We'll go back and look at incidents and be able to look and see what went right, what went wrong, and critique ourselves. And we'll also even video our actual trainings so that the training division can go back, look at those videos again, and see if they saw any deficiencies from up above, which it's amazing what your perspective is when you start looking at things from 7,500 feet up.
Changes your whole perspective on it, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, again, you're listening to Captain Mike Pruitt from the Wayne Township Fire Department, on this guest today on the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance. Cops for Kids. We're talking about UAVs and platforms and how they've come on to help law enforcement and the fire side. Mike, we've talked about how great these things are. What's the limitations on them?
Well, a lot of people ask, are these the replacements for the helicopter? Right. In many ways, yes, they're much cheaper to operate, but there are still limitations with the UAVs. One is battery life. You get about 30 minutes on average of battery life, sometimes less, depending on what model you're flying. Also, we're limited in weather. They're not weatherproof. There are a few UAVs that are starting to be are in production that you can fly in the rain. If you get cold temperatures, sometimes the batteries don't want to be as cooperative.
Right.
So there are a lot of limitations that do come along with the UAVs right now. That technology, I'm sure, will continue to move forward. And then there's also restricted airspaces. So, we live here in the city of Indianapolis, and this is where we do our flying. So there are restrictions in the area of the Indianapolis International Airport that you have to get a waiver for to be able to operate in that airspace. And then there are some airspace that are just completely restricted of any UAV operations. So we always check the airspace for flying in. The FAA provides a nice little app called Before You Fly. You go on there, whether you're a public safety operator, or if you're just a private citizen who's a hobbyist, you get on that app, you open it up, and it basically will give you all the information you need about any restrictions in the area that you want to fly in.
What about wind?
Wind, we're looking at about, depending on the size of the platform. So this small UAV, I get up over 15 into 20 mile an hour winds. Probably not going to be a safe situation for me to fly in because the UAV is just not strong enough to fight those winds. You get into some of the larger platforms, then our wind speed, can be a little bit higher that we're operating in. But weather is a huge factor before we fly. We're always sizing that up, make sure we're not running into any issues that's going to cause a problem for us.
Crowds?
Cannot fly over crowds. Now, there are waivers that you can file with the FAA for flying over crowds, but I can tell you those are very tough to get. And so there are restrictions basically across the board that you're not allowed to fly over crowds.
Okay.
You're not allowed, you have to stay under 400 feet. That's the other restriction with these.
Is this pretty much the universal platform that you see now with the four, I'm calling them props? Is that pretty much universal, or is there other designs that are coming out also?
There are a few other designs. Most of them out there on the market right now are the quadcopters. So you have the four rotors.
So that's your most maneuverable type of thing that you have there.
Yes.
And your camera, you can move it around, or does a drone move around?
The drone,
or not the UAV.
The cameras, there are certain drones that allow you to operate your camera 360 degrees without turning the drone. And then, like this one we have in front of us, this allows me to move my camera up and down, vertical, up and down, or I have to turn the drone side to side to get my horizontal movement.
Okay.
So, but they're really easy to handle. It's amazing, especially this whole generation of younger people that are growing up that have spent a lifetime of playing video games.
Oh, it's going to be second nature, isn't it?
This is second nature to them, where some of us folks that were stuck in the middle who had to learn a little bit more about that and get, with playing video games.
Playing Pong?
Yeah,
Pong didn't help you out?
Pong didn't help me out with this. So they're not that hard to fly. But the biggest thing is people have to practice with these things, whether you're in public safety or a private citizen. You've got to spend some time away from everybody, out in the open. Just practice flying before you decide that you're going to do something, some fancy photography or somewhere around your neighborhood. And the other thing is that, there's a big privacy issue with UAVs. Ever since these things started getting really popular,
absolutely,
there's been a big concern about privacy and harassment with these, and so people need to be aware of, if you're going to fly your UAV, is everybody on board with you flying your UAV around you, and be courteous with your aircraft.
Well, I know in our world in law enforcement, you have to get a warrant to utilize these unless there's certain exigent circumstances, which are, terrorist attack, or you research or search and rescue of somebody like you talked about before, disaster of some type, or something like a vehicle crash on the highway where you need to get it and you've got hazmat. But that's also very held down to a very slim mode. So it needs to be looked at. And we have to go through the certain parts to do that, which I believe is great. That needs to be done.
I think lawmakers have tried to find a fine balance between, allowing people to fly these, but also protecting the citizens from improper usage of these UAVs. So the UAV market is huge in the U.S. economy right now.
Well, it's not all agribusiness utilizes these
absolutely
a lot,
and so it's like one of those machines. When it got rolling, it was not something you could stop. We just had to find better ways to regulate it and make sure that it was done safely.
Yeah. Well, again, you've been listening to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance. We've been talking with Captain Mike Pruitt from Wayne Township Fire Department on the UAV that they have in their toolbox that they can utilize around. You guys have went all over before that, utilizing this stuff, and we appreciate you bringing this in here today and showing us how it works out, and maybe we'll be able to see you out there utilizing it somewhere.
Hope so.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you for listening to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. Catch Mike Pruitt from the Wayne Township Fire Department. He's got some videos out there, I'm sure, with this, utilizing the UAV, and you're going to see that out there on the on the YouTube site. So thanks for listening to the Roadshow. We'll catch you next week. The Roadshow is out.